What do you got hard?
Well, Chris, unfortunately, I can't go into the evidence that's being presented to the committee.
Do you have something hard that you can't reveal?
I can't reveal that, Chris. Of course, there's one thing to say there's evidence. There's another thing to say we can prove this or prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, or there's enough evidence to bring to a grand jury for purposes of a criminal indictment. I don't think we can say anything definitively at this point. We are still at the very early stage of the investigation.
We haven't seen an actual proof of cooperation and collusion. So what am I missing here?
Well, I think you have to look at the pattern and the chronology. The Russians offered help. The campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
Last March, you said you had more than circumstantial evidence of treasonous collusion with Russia. What specifically were you referring to? And please be specific, because if it's true, I do believe Americans have the right to know a year later what that is.
Well, I've certainly said that there's ample evidence of collusion. I've never used the word treason. Only Steve Bannon has used that word. But if you look at the facts that are already in the public domain, they're pretty damning. The American people need to know whether the Russians still have something they can hold over the president's head, the president of the United States. So our work is far from done. I could certainly say with confidence that there is significant evidence of collusion between the campaign and Russia.
Well, my thoughts are this. Mr. Schiff is a shill for the Russian government. And I'm going to tell you why it is Schiff who's a propagandist for the Russian government, despite his spinning on all these left-wing TV shows. He put out a list of 30 more interviews he wants to do, even though the Republicans on the committee said there's no collusion. And he mentions a long list. Reince Priebus, Stephen Miller, K.T. McFarland, Sean Spicer, Kellyanne Conway, bunch of consultants, people with the Trump Organization, some of Trump's lawyers, somebody that runs a group, Christian rights activists. Of course, he wants Donald Trump Jr. to kick around. He wants Jared Kushner to kick around, family members, on and on and on. Let me tell you who he doesn't want. Let me tell you who this shill for Russia doesn't want. He doesn't want Hillary Clinton. He didn't say we should subpoena Hillary Clinton, even though it was the Hillary Clinton campaign that laundered money through a law firm in this Fusion GPS. To do what? To corroborate and collude with the Russians with their phony dossier. He didn't ask for a single Hillary Clinton campaign official. Why is that, Mr. Schiff, since we know they colluded? He didn't ask for the former head of the DNC. I don't know if that was Wasserman Schultz or Donna Brazil. He doesn't want to subpoena them and question them. Where did their money come from? That money that they laundered through that law firm to Fusion GPS to the Russians. That's something he doesn't want to talk about. I've got more. Barack Obama. How can it possibly be that the President of the United States, under whom all this occurred, Donald Trump was a candidate, Donald Trump was a victim, his family was victimized. Barack Obama was President of the United States when the Russians were interfering with our election. Don't we, the American people, want to hear from Barack Obama in an open committee hearing? Well, Mr. Shill for the Russians, Schiff, he doesn't. What about Loretta Lynch and her role on the FISA warrants as Attorney General? She's not on his list. Neither are other senior Justice Department officials in the Obama administration. What about these FISA court judges who even now know as a matter of fact that what was presented to them to issue a warrant against an American citizen was materially false because it omitted everything I just told you about the dossier? Now, what else isn't Mr. Schiff interested in? He's not interested in Uranium One. He doesn't make a single request for a witness or a subpoena. 20% of America's uranium is now controlled by Vladimir Putin because Schiff is a shill for Putin, in my view. What else doesn't he want? He doesn't want to hear Bill Clinton testify, who got money from the Russians to give speeches around the same time. He doesn't want anyone from the Clinton Foundation to testify, any of the senior officials. That foundation made a fortune off the Russians. Who else doesn't he want to testify? He doesn't want senior lawyers at this law firm, Perkins-Coy, that keeps popping up, through which money was laundered to Fusion GPS, and then to the British ex-spy, and then to the Russians to put this dossier together. He doesn't want her, and he doesn't want Susan Rice back. Now, why doesn't he want Susan Rice back? There's a new book out that says Susan Rice objected to the cybersecurity personnel in the White House who said, hey, Susan, the Russians are interfering with our election. And you know what she told them? Stand down. Shouldn't Susan get another invitation with a subpoena to testify before the committee? Apparently not, because Mr. Schiff is a shill. Who else? What about Ben Rhodes, the deputy director of the National Security Council? Doesn't Mr. Schiff want to know what the Obama National Security Council knew about Russian interference in our government? No, he doesn't mention her at all. Now, let me tell you something. Mr. Schiff is not interested in the abuses of the FISA application process. He's not interested in what the FISA court did. He's not interested in the fact that American citizens were spied on and their names were unmasked. He doesn't ask for any witnesses related to that. None whatsoever. I will tell you this, Mr. Schiff, you're a leaker.
Let me ask you
sit on the House Intelligence Committee, and because you're on that committee, it ought to be called the House Stupid Committee. You are the ranking Democrat on that committee, and you say you didn't leak. I have a challenge for you, Mr. Schiff. Why don't you take a lie detector test? Why don't you take a lie detector test so the American people can be sure that you, all over TV, ubiquitous, you might as well be on airport radar and sonograms. You're everywhere, sir. And you tell us you don't leak? Okay, take a lie detector test, because I believe you do. Comey leaked, FBI director. Deputy FBI Director McCabe, leaker. James Clapper, according to a new book, National Intelligence Director, leaker. According to their own texts, Mr. Stroke, head of counterintelligence, leaker. His girlfriend Paige, leaker. This has been a sham from day one. Why the hell would the Russians want Donald Trump as president of the United States? You think they like him now? When under Hillary Clinton and John Kerry and under Barack Obama, they got Crimea, they got part of the Ukraine, they got a big chunk of Syria, they got 20% of our uranium. Why the hell would Vladimir Putin want Donald Trump as president of the United States when he promised to beef up the United States military and do all the things necessary to secure this nation? Mr. Mueller, I have a question for you. You've asked repeatedly, apparently, the Deputy Attorney General, who's the acting Attorney General in this case, Rod Rosenstein, to expand your authority, to chase down issues that have nothing to do with Russian collusion. Now you're running around in the Middle East. Now you're running around over here. Now you're running around over there. Mr. Mueller, why haven't you asked Mr. Rosenstein, your friend, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, to expand your investigation to include the Hillary campaign? Why haven't you asked Mr. Rosenstein to expand your investigation to look into the Russian apparatchiks who gave information to a foreign ex-British spy who was paid through a laundered process by the Hillary Clinton campaign in the DNC, Mr. Clouseau? How come you don't look at that? How come you haven't looked at the abuse and violations by your friend, Mr. Comey, and the former Attorney General of the United States of the FISA court? I'll tell you why. Because this guy's a hitman. This guy who got the whole anthrax investigation wrong and still hasn't apologized to the man he was chasing and ruined for 5 years, this man is out to get the president. That's why.